All right. Well, welcome to your. So that is actually incorrect. So I'll see that right now on the main media thing. Yeah, excuse that. Uh, 223. That's where we are. Radio 223, and we are starting with the first lesson of 2024. Welcome to this module. My name is Chris. I'll be your lecturer. I'll see you every alternate week on campus. Please also note that you can join the WhatsApp group on Call Campus. There's a link there. Just join it, please, as soon as you can, because all the communication that I will be sharing, extra documents, your formatives as well, will be there. And if there are any questions, whatever it may be, it's obviously a good place to even do group work and stuff like that, whatever it may be. Right. Okay. So just the formatics. And semantics, should I say, as well. Let's get into the first lesson and not waste time. The first lesson can be referenced in your Next Level Radio, chapter 11, page 410. We're starting with quantitative and qualitative analysis or research that is something that I mean, it's so important to us. Obviously, the RAMs, the BRC that conducts the RAMs for us. So audience figures and understanding also behaviors, lifestyles, choices, whatever it may be. For us as a radio station, at a radio station, to understand our listener better, see what it is that they do like, don't like, create some focus groups as well, is how we improve the station and also know that are there any red alerts and red flags that are apparent and are made very clear to us through these research methodologies are things that we need to attack and pay attention to, create some solutions and move on from that. Um, on an ongoing basis. So the RAMs are diaries that go and quantify people that are part and they're selected at random, should I say. They're part of this research analysis process where they will go and document like when they listen to a station, how long they listen to a station for, which station they're listening to, which stations they might be listening to if there's more than one, and and so much more that we'll get into this lesson here. Okay, so if you do want to contact me, there I am. It's at info@chrisjordanmedia.net. I'm again your lecturer for the year. You can also, once again, I mean, I didn't include it here, but you can just contact me directly via WhatsApp on 0726435502. But if you join the group, obviously you'll see my details are there. Okay, the textbooks throughout the year we're going to be using is Next Level Radio, as we do in this lesson, but also Beyond Powerful Radio, which is the Valerie Geller book. And we're going to take some reference points when we look at, for example, like news and content, whatever it may be. But there's always extra learning material for you that will be also uploaded to Call Campus in I say some regards. So not everything here is uploaded to, but I know that the frequently asked questions should be there. You can obviously go to the BRC link right here and then also find all the information that you do need. It's obviously advised that you do go to these websites, do the extra reading, have the extra questions that you do want to ask, and get some better clarity so that you can become a media practitioner. Specifically, I care about radio. That's why we're here, right? Aren't we? And you can become a radio practitioner and become more proficient in what it is that you are, you know, you're I mean you're doing, right? Okay. So let's look at a basic introduction. If we look at commercial radio stations, there's always that kind of balance and there's always balance and moderation between who's more important, listeners or clients, right? If we start that argument, it's never going to end because there's no winning opinion here or side, right? Listeners are super important to our station. Otherwise, we don't have a station. We're broadcasting to the heavens and nothing more. And so listeners, the more that we get, the more that we can retain as loyal listeners. Very important for us to also inadvertently, like, be able to attract clients. Clients are how we pay bills. So up to 70-75% of revenue does come from, sales. So on air sales, we have obviously extended the way that we, let's say, look at a commercial radio station that has to be driven on profit predominantly. Um, I'm not saying it's not its only mandate. I'm saying it's not its only mandate, but it is one of the largest mandates for commercial radio stations to make money, right? But we want these clients, to, invest in us, advertise with us, and I will finish my train of thought with the extras in just a moment. But we want them to continuously come back, give us that revenue. Let's say buy some packages, buy some sponsorships, whatever it may be. So we have that recurrent revenue that does come in. But also, again, clients are, when we look over and above, what we can actually do on air and earn money, like revenue, contract revenue from that, we also now have the option of extending our digital media and digital advertising, and branding and whatever it may be. The digital space allows us an extra, like, avenue of revenue to bring in some money. And there are other things, like, for example, concerts or, any kind of, like, outside broadcast that could be partnered up with another brand, whatever it is. We could piggyback off something like, for example, an event. Um, like I've seen 947 specifically over the past couple of years at Comic Con Africa. Getting, you might not, that might not bring in money, but it brings in awareness, and there are a lot of people that attend that particular conference, right? So a lot of people go to Comic Con Africa, see, obviously, kind of that embedded product there. A lot of these people could be part of a company, that is looking for some kind of reach, and to more their customers, whatever it may be. And we have many different ways in which we can attract them to our station. Okay, all right. But at the end of the day, what's really important is that you understand that there is this synergy and the symbiotic relationship between listeners and clients. So one benefits from the other, and the other benefits from the other. Understand an audience, stations use our radio research. One way to attract a client and one way to attract more listeners is definitely understanding how, what, where, when, why, especially the why. You know, our statistics from our RAMs are at, and what they're indicating and what they're telling us. So it's telling us stories, that we've got to go and elevate towards knowledge management, right? Which is another discussion altogether, where we will go and kind of like three-dimensional, four-dimensional, take an approach of that type of nature to what we find as just flat statistics, so numbers, whatever it may be, and try and build that into something more that that gives us an indication about, intentions, maybe even some predictions, definitely behavior, likes, dislikes, that type of stuff, and definitely once again that patterns, so that we can again customize that revenue approach, customize our programming online, on I say online in terms of obviously digital, but also as well as obviously on air, and again how that we can package our product over our next diary period, and so on and so forth. The most important aspect to bear in mind is the source of the research, right? So we are very, very, very happy with the BRC. It's not that we weren't happy with SARF before. SARF was just not, as I think maybe the best way to say it, didn't have the best resources in comparison to the BRC. The BRC took over the research process many years ago. I mean, I can't remember now how many years it's been. Quite a good couple of years, right? And they refined the process, and so the backlash in terms of that was, well, with the SARF numbers, we were very much overinflated. So when they overflood, there we go, that's the right um, presence or pretense, whatever it is, I don't know. My English is terrible. I'm saying English as the subject is terrible. Anyway, but they would overflow, right? So they would overflow the numbers to a bit of a ridiculous amount. And again, not to take away from their efforts, because that's what we had and that's what we knew. And the BRC came in to refine those. So one of the backlashes was that a lot of so we couldn't sell what we wanted to sell at a certain price. Looking at commercial stations specifically, and these massive, massive numbers in the millions, particularly one that comes to always mind because it was one of the biggest stations that had a big, big, big wake up call when the BRC took over was KFM, right? KFM was just over a million something, million point one or whatever it may have been, right? And when the VRC had refined their numbers, I think it dropped to about 600,000. And so the revenue of the rate card, should I say, for that had to be completely restructured. Things had to be a lot cheaper. Um, Clients didn't lose faith in KFM. That's not fair to say, because KFM would deliver, they would do a really good job. But the thing is that things were cheaper now, because you got certain amounts of listeners that you can possibly reach, certain averages throughout the day or throughout the week, or specific races, roles, genders, etc. And now we have to redefine how much we're going to charge, right? So just as an example, um, of the effect of more consistent, more accurate, as much as we can. You'll also see throughout this particular lesson that we have to estimate. We do in a certain way. I don't think they use the term um, flooding, those numbers anymore. But we do have a more accurate way of obviously inflaming, those particular numbers to accurately portray or represent the South African radio listening public out there. So it is always designed and directed towards a certain goal. Of course, I mean, all research is, why do it in the first place? Why do it at all? Radio stations are competing with podcasts, internet streaming, musical subscription apps, etc., which hopefully we'll get to look at some of those particular um, compartments, should I say, right, or subsectors in many lessons to come. Uh, and please excuse any noise that you might hear, some ambience, because I'm recording from home. It's just a loud truck at the back there. Anyway. Radio stations are under pressure to understand the audience in detail, because it's not like they weren't under pressure before. Constant pressure. You have to understand your audience. If you understand them more in detail, right, you can obviously produce a better product, a more accurate product, a more relevant product, a more entertaining product, whatever it may be. That, once again, if we look at sales, like, it'll attract customers, because those particular listeners are staying, on that particular frequency, right? So why do we need to actually perform any audience research? It tells us who is listening, how they are listening. Is it via, some digital means? So a cell phone? Is it streaming? Is it whatever it may be? It could be, let's say, using DSTV. It could be via, I say, your computer. So your computer versus your cell phone. Um, or any other digital quote unquote device, right? Okay. Or is it traditionally, which you'll see, like, I mean, the predominant amount of South Africans still listen to radio on a radio, you understand, like on an actual radio. That might seem archaic in I think maybe the first second or two that you think about it, but everyone likes a radio. Everyone has a radio somewhere in their house because it's probably part and parcel of other, let's say, entertainment systems that the house has or whatever it may be. Still a radio. It doesn't have to look like the old style where you've got a little aerial and stuff like that, right? Anyway, but their reasons for choosing to tune in, right? Why are they tuning in is really important. Why they're choosing a particular radio station is super important. And the demographic, this is my English again, demographic profile of the audience is also important. So, are they, let's say, in a lower class, middle class, upper class? Are they of a different race? So, let's say black, white, Indian, colored, um, and so on and so forth, right? Is the station particularly a psychographic? So I work for a station that pertains or targets a psychographic. That means the listeners are there because they think a certain way, and whatever the radio station offers them has to obviously service that particular train of that mindset, should I say, right? So you might get varied cultures, varied races, varied sexes, obviously listening to the station because it is a psychographic, whereas demographics tend to one first and foremost are on the race that a South African is. So once again, black, white, colored Indian are our predominant ones. And then we have a number, obviously, other different races that also, make up the contribution of our entire population, right? We also obviously have a breakdown of, within our black cultures, we have many different sects, so subcultures, so Ndebele or, Tswane or whatever, Tswane, that's right. Or are you, I say, no, why am I, Tonga, whatever it may be, right? Right. There's many different sects, subsects of cultures within, let's say, our black population that will gravitate to certain PBS stations. So our public broadcast services, like our Ukhosis for our Zulu Nation, and again up here, Motsweding, I think is quite popular as well. All right. Anyway, so you do understand that. Let's look at the difference between qualitative versus quantitative research, right? What are the two differences? Qualitative, you can look at the wording, right? So qualitative, quality, right? Whereas quantitative is quantity, right? Quality is where we are looking for a little bit more understanding, a little bit more context, a little bit more perspective, some unique open-ended questions that we want to ask our particular focus group member, right? And our focus groups in general, right? What they are thinking about, what their thoughts are. Did they like the certain feature? Tell us why not? Do they like this presenter? Do they know this presenter's name? This type of music is where we want to introduce new aspects or, like I say, new sub formats of um, is that what you listen to? That type of, like, again, qualitative, but again, it's more about understanding a further, like a further and a deeper context. Quantity, so quantitative research or data, are close-ended questions. All right. So, for example, um, like right, so the how many, so there's some examples there. I would really focus like a qualitative sex. I wouldn't really um uh I wouldn't. I would probably and this is straight from your textbook, so I'm not gonna propagate some other thoughts, except that I would, if I can number something, so if I can produce totals of, then I would banner that under quantitative research, right? So for example, like how many, how often give us like, is it a one, is it a two to three, is it a four to six, seven to eight, or a nine to ten, how many times, so that we can actually get a number and then get some averages or get some totals, whatever it may be. That's how you would do like a bit of a test to understand, is this question really a quality one, right? So something that again is more open-ended. Sex, I don't agree with, because that is um like I wouldn't, if it says not gender there, I'm not quite sure as to what it is that they might be referring to. I would, in this case, let's say take sex as male or female, or other, right? Obviously, because we are living in a very different time now, and I would probably move it over here, right? Okay. Favorite song on the radio station, maybe why would make it more of a quality thing, so that we could get an understanding of maybe your top three songs on the radio station, or top three songs that you don't like on the radio station, or music that you do like, or you've grown to like, that we've introduced you to. What is that, whatever it may be. How did you, like how long did it take you to take notice, quote unquote, of our top 40 hits, or whatever it may be, or number one hit on our top 40. And we can look at that as to uh, how we can apply these answers. We have to be able to say, okay, is it relevant? Is it useful? Right? So if you're looking for a question that makes sense, you want to be able to first say, if it makes sense, can I use it to support some kind of business decision at the end of the day? So, for example, if I'm looking to ask questions about my music, and we do AMTs for that particularly, so auditory music testing, where we go and test a number of different songs and people give it ratings and so on and so forth, right? But let's say we want to look at genres or new genres, or ways that people are listening to or discovering new songs, whatever it is. And let's say they're discovering them predominantly on Spotify, right? Then we need to know that we also need to maybe be there, right? Or it'd be twofold, right? We need to look for more music that is perhaps maybe local, that are or is doing great things on Spotify, or Apple iTunes, whatever it may be in those charts. Um, and then, we could also make sure that our podcasts are, for example, on Spotify, that the station can be streamed across there, whatever it may be, right? So it's supporting a business decision. Should we see that the trend, or again the curve of let's say we're doing it graphically, the curve of these particular events are pushing us in a particular direction, right? At any one point, again, I'm just going to say this a couple of times throughout every lesson. If there is, or there are any or confusions or questions, then please do contact me when it is specifically something like this, like a pre-recorded lesson. Okay. All right. So then we need to know who is listening. There are common themes that appear to all people. Everyone cleans their sheets. I'm gonna say yes, sure, and not passing judgment, like literally sitting right now on something that actually needs to go into the wash. I don't really want to do it, but I don't have to at some other point. The liking it is definitely I'm not I don't know. I would say everyone likes to clean their sheets is a no. Maybe everyone does like clean sheets, whatever. We all hate traffic. There's nothing good about traffic. Queuing, and we all get bored. All right. Um, so what relevance does this actually have? I mean, if we have to just try and look for similarities in our audience, excuse me, we can easily start to propagate good programming according to their behaviors and their lifestyles, who these particular listeners are, what they're doing, what they eat, where they go and have a good time, so spend their time recreationally, whatever it may be. There are many ways that we can then take good business decisions and translate that into something tangible that they hear or receive from our radio station. So, if as a class, we were to list 5 points that run across the entire class as decided to apply to all of you with regard to 5 songs that everybody likes. Now, there's going to be obviously a lot of disagreement. That's why we can perhaps decide on 5 great songs that everyone does actually like. Does it say that they have to be new or they have to be contemporary, whatever it is? It could be classics that we know definitely everyone loves. 5 things that are most important to you in your life. We all know things like for example, family is super important to, I would say, everyone. Everyone needs someone in their life, right? And everyone, I'm hoping, has someone in their life. That's important. It changes obviously the quality of life that you lead, right? 5 important things. Another one is, let's say, purpose, So, purpose through, let's say, having a job, having some kind of need to be somewhere, you know, some validation, whatever it may be, through your, again, I say like the quality of your work, some other things as well. What's important to you? Eating. You have to eat. You have to drink water. So definitely diet has to be important to someone's life. Even if it's an unhealthy diet, it affects your life quite, quite, I say to a very large degree. Right. Okay. And then so on and so forth. I can give you more. 5 reasons you might get up in the morning. That one's going to be difficult. One, because you have to, would be probably a popular one because you have to go to work, you have to go to class, or you have to go see your mom or your dad, or you have to go fix, let's say, you have to fix the car, whatever it may be, start a project. I don't know, like, there could be many reasons why you have to get up in the morning. You want to go have a shower, you want to brush your teeth, you want to just have some breakfast, you're hungry, I don't know. Um, you want to catch a live stream of something that is happening overseas, whatever it may be, the Grammys, the Oscars, I'm not sure, right? And you want to get that good, it's that good live feeling. We like to see things not afterwards, but during, right? A great soccer match, rugby match, whatever it may be. Okay. We get up in the morning because sometimes we need to, right? So life can be broken at many times in our existence, and you know what? Getting up in the morning might be your first, I say, your first sign of salvation, should I say, right? And I say, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it, what is the word I'm looking for? Not reservation. Man, the one we, yeah, preservation. There's the word. Anyway, there we go. Self-preservation. You get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So we find commonalities. It is these themes that radio stations focus on as their expertise. Stories where people succeed despite the odds. It's all about interesting topics that will appeal to the majority of audiences. So we will look at these topics, we'll look at these conversations, we'll look at the interviews we have, we'll look at who we're featuring on the station, we'll look at what games we play or who we talk to. I'm saying as listeners as well, where we are at, what events we want to, cover, or, maybe have a field reporter there because people need to know. Like, for example, when the elections do eventually come this year at some point or another, every radio station has to have a number of reporters consistently and continuously reporting from different polling stations, right? Really important. because we want to know what's going on, right? And we want to know what people are thinking, saying, doing, voting for at the end of the day, right? And also all the I say the theatrics that are going to come with that. It's part of, I suppose, entertainment, you know? Okay. So for yourself, at any one point, I want you to think about like how we can make things very common in everyone's life. So when we, like I said, look at the two, psychographics or demographics, look at the demographic. If we look at, let's say, a lower SEM, so we're looking SEMs are something that they're uh, I think it's a social economic metric if I'm not mistaken, right? But anyway, the thing is that shows us like what kind of lifestyle you are leading. Like, do you have money that you are spending? At obviously, if you've got a lot more money, I'm guessing you would probably spend a lot more. You would have a higher SEM. Certain SEMs listen to certain stations. So, for example, our PBS stations predominantly have lower to middle class SEM. So let's say one to let's say about six maybe at a stretch. And then we look at our commercial stations that could fluctuate, I suppose, definitely like the Jacarandas, the 947s, the East Coast radios, let's say Kaya, I suppose, as well, would have a high SEM. We're talking about six to about 10 quite easily. Yeah, and so the thing is, we've got to look at these types of people, what they do in their life. What are they spending their money on? They're buying new cars, on the lookout for that. Like, we could definitely get a lot of advertising from that point of view. Where are they going, or what are their problems specifically? We have a lot of different problems that apply to a lot of different people, right? So, again, depending on what type of lifestyle that you are leading or living in, different things are going to be important to you at the end of the day. Okay, understanding that audience, let's continue. So listener behavior has changed massively. And that goes without saying over the past decade. Why? Because the I say the infrastructure and I say our digital economy and infrastructure has completely changed, the way that, before we would question whether people in rural areas would have access to cell phones, many years ago, right? Now it's a standard, like it's a staple thing. Everybody who's anybody in this country 10 to 1 has a cell phone, right? 10 to 0.1 has a cell phone. So, for example, that's a really good example to show you like the dependencies that, for example, instant, say, communication um, or have played a massive role, for example, in, let's say a job that that you currently have, demands by your family, wherever it is, demands from your community, whatever it may be, like you need to be accessible. And again, it's a lot easier. We know cell phones have changed our lives in so many different ways, right? But that's for a country that again has predominantly like lower class, lower class, work class, should I say, right? uh, you would just think like if you were being very presumptuous that well people don't have technology or they don't have access to technology. Yes, they might not all have DSTV or some kind of DAB streaming, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Like that's not the thing. I've got to look at how we've changed, based on the digital age and its impact, right? Yes, definitely. Like the predominant amount of our nation does not have social media nor cares to either, right? Okay, because again, like if you are looking at our general population, lower class, right? What reason would they have or want to have? I'm saying to you, we're looking at an older lower class want to have with Facebook or TikTok or whatever it may be, right? Anyway, I could be wrong. That's why we have statistics to show us, right? Anyway, with the full swing of the digital age, short concentration spans and multiple external stimuli are growing exponentially. You know that in your own life. You know it. You know it. Like your attention span is extremely short. It's also aggravated. It's short-tempered, and also it's quite intolerant, right? Just because of just because that's the way we've now been, I want to say trained, but we've kind of been shaped over the past, let's say, decade and a half, because of that instant gratification, that super overflow of information that we can access, the tons and tons of social mediums that are available, media, stimulants, and more stimulants, but also the pressures of life. You understand what I'm saying? So I've got to go and make sure that I go to the gym. I also need to watch what I eat. I need to visit my family. I've got to visit my friends. I've got to attend work. I've got to take care of myself. I've got to look after my pets. I've got to, you understand, plan for a big getaway at the end of the year. I've got to do menial stuff like go get my license or, re-register my, I don't know, what is it called? What do we have there? What is that disc? The disc, man. Um, Whatever it may be, there's so much that, yes, they could have, to some extent, in some scale, was also relevant maybe 20 years ago. But because we're not so, again, we have so many options. And again, because there's so many more people, more, many more, I suppose, activities is a good way to say it, right? That are happening throughout the global, I'm saying, village. It's obvious that this is a lot more stressful. It's a lot more demanding, the life that we live right now. So if you don't engage with a listener, right, and you try and keep them there for as long as possible, you're going to lose them. And maybe not lose them permanently. You've got to say something really offensive, I suppose. Really tick them off. But you will lose them definitely. Like tolerance wise, if we hear something like a bad song or just something stupid that a DJ says, or some irrelevant news, or news too long, or news too short, or adverts too long, whatever it is, like we will definitely switch it off and maybe just again scroll through social media or play, let's say, a favorite song from Spotify, whatever it may be, right? Okay. So there are three ways that we say people, not particular to some certain sect of people. People absorb information. One is auditory, so you're hearing. Second is visual, seeing something. Kinesthetic, right, or tactile, which is touching, right? How do you feel something? What does it feel like, right? And our goal is to entertain here using the auditory tool. And yes, of course, when we go to, our digital platforms, we want to make sure that you can visually be stimulated too and find new ways to even to some extent, have the tactile aspect of it. So when we say touching, for me, the most obvious example is when you see a radio station at a concert, at an outside broadcast. You can go and meet DJs. You can see who are part of this particular team, whatever it is, how they're engaging with the audience or obviously the people that are attending. That would be something a little bit tactile. We can also look at merchandise. That can also be something that you touch and feel. And so there are many options as well. Okay. All right, so halfway through the lesson, right? So let's look at understanding your audience, asking yourself how effective research can be, should be, or would be run in music versus talk radio. It's very different, even though let's say we're going to look at, let's say, some numbers, very basic numbers to introduce you to the RAMs concept, right? And understanding RAMs. But at the end of the day, it's just numbers on that side. So on that side, so these reports that you'll find freely available on the BOC are just numbers, right? Of the last quarter, and how much a station got. So, for example, 702 doesn't make any difference between 702 or let's say Metro FM, a number is a number is a number, right? So those stations particularly have to go more in depth with understanding. They might have to pay a little bit more, whatever it is, understanding why it is that people are listening to them in what specific way and why at the end of the day. Okay, what doesn't change? What gets people's attention? Health and safety, because again, the moment it's like our safety is at risk or it's threatened, or whatever it is, or health, like we pay attention, right? So you must think of yourself. Like you might be feeling great today, but tomorrow you could have a really hectic cold. Okay. And that's the only thing that's going to monopolize your day. Like, man, you want to feel better. What medicine should you take? Like, what vitamins should you take? How much rest you're going to get? Health and safety, big, right? I mean, someone breaks into your house, right? Like, that's going to be on the top of your mind all the time. Your anxiety, your anger, your frustration, like the stuff that you have to replace or whatever it is, that violation of privacy, that touch with the outside world that is unknown to you because like who did this and like why would they come here? How bad is it? I don't know. Very important. All of these are very important. Like anything that is emotional, so it tugs at your quote unquote heartstrings, right? To use something very cliche. But if it makes you sad or happy or joyful or, supportive or inspired, like we want to hear it, right, on radio. If it affects your money, yes, everybody wants to know, right? Maybe making money, like taxes, like higher expenses, the petrol price, whatever it may be, right? Um, Many ways, obviously I keep saying what is it? Basically, the rand going down. I don't know what the fancy word right now is for it. Excuse me. Right. Okay. I would say the degradation. There we go. Of the rand. That's personally, it's the shameful way of saying it. Anyway, transformation, giving a listener hope for the future. Right. Okay. So change, and personal change versus public change, um, okay, all right. So still not yet. You're still wondering what are we like? What are we busy doing here? In terms of the Rams itself, demographic variables we want to look at, geographic variables, where do people stay, behavior variables, right? Okay. So why are they doing these certain things? And then we add psychographics, right? Which I explained to you could be or is the state of mind that one has and so gravitates towards, let's say, like a talk radio station would be a good psychographic as opposed to a demographic, right? Okay. Live by numbers, die by the numbers. Okay. So I kind of stumbled also part and parcel because that's what my old bosses at Prime Media would say to me. So like, oh, don't worry, Chris. Like, just saying, like, let's say that the numbers are coming out tomorrow. Live by the numbers, die by the numbers. It's not important, right? But the thing is, the moment that the numbers come out, every station decision is based on dying by those numbers, right? Or living by those numbers. If we talk about that statement from both the positive and negative approaches station managers have when using it, numbers do say what is going on with your station. The moment they drop, and then you do further research and further focus groups and find out it's a specific show or two shows, like your big shows, maybe it's in the breakfast, the drive, or any other weekday show and you're seeing this massive drop and this massive decline and this massive rejection of you're like you need to change this now, right? And 10 to 1, like most station managers make very abrupt decisions, immediately fire that particular presenter because they get scared, get spooked, right? We need to also understand that numbers are influenced by circumstances as well. Why? Like we need to know why. So is it because the DJ is really irritating, or they're saying irritating things, or they're boring, or whatever it is? Or right now, for example, because we need a station that is focused a lot more on the political aspects and again the social political aspects of South Africa, we might have turned towards a sister choice, a sister station of choice, and gone to talk radio, for example, because it had more information, more reputable and reliable information, as opposed to like little quirks about who you love and how you show your love and blah blah, whatever it may be, right? That you might find more likely on music radio, right? A little more of the fun stuff. How accurate are they in South Africa? As best as we can, like I said, the BRC has been able to um, accumulate and now obviously represent the numbers quite as most accurately as they can. But also, like you need to know that strategies and station changes and whatever it is take a long time to sit right with an audience. So you're gonna go and change your lineup. You're gonna fire this person. You're gonna hire this person. You go and destruct that particular listener's life, and it's really annoying because they get exhausted. They hear kind of generic content. They don't hear anything new because you got to play it safe when you're introducing a new person and a new show, so that you don't disrupt the waters, whatever it may be. And you could, and most likely have negative effects. Yes, some people go and get really big names, but we've also seen big names fail miserably, at certain stations, right? And there isn't a formula, there isn't a framework, and you as a station manager should play it by ear, play it carefully, and sometimes roll the dice. You understand? Take some chances when you feel that part enough of your structure, your programming structure, is solid and it's dependable. You can make smaller changes to big things. Like, for example, a breakfast show. If you're going to change a breakfast show, you can't make any other changes to that lineup for a long time, right? Anyway, we could carry on forever, but we won't. Okay. Um, so just some thoughts. Okay, so obviously, why is the BRC, the Broadcast Research Council of South Africa, why are they important? Because they do the job for us. We really need these numbers. We depend on them for all the aspects that I've been saying in this lesson already. So the release in quarterlies, February, May, August, and November. Establishment surveys in March and September. There could have been COVID and BRC research, and then the switch over from LSMs, which was more about money versus like money, so money earned within a household or particular listener, whatever it may be, demographic, as opposed to an SEM, which is how much money you're spending, how you're spending it, right? Okay. So we know that COVID threw a big, big, big span in the works for many, many reasons, but it also halted research. And it wasn't, we couldn't reliably say that the stats, if we were to, and there were some stats that were released over COVID. COVID lasted quite a long time, right? Not exactly dependable because COVID was a very specific instance or point in our lives where a lot of radio went up because it was a real time medium. Do you understand? And it was stuck at home. And not everyone, like I said, has DSTV, and SABC can only do, and ETV can only do certain amounts of, coverage. But radio was dependent for all those volatile changes on an up to date, like real time status scale or whatever it is, right? Okay. Anyway, so with a bit of just, we won't read through the whole thing. Just want to just give you a bit of an example of this excerpt with COVID and BRC research with regards to our radio, so our audience measurements, our RAMs, right, which we are interested in, not the TAMs, which is television. In line with COVID legislation, face-to-face field work has been suspended, right? Okay, this is the big thing. So this is unfortunately come at a time close to the end of the quarter. Therefore, whilst there may be an impact on final sample size achieved, we should be in a position to continue to issue Q1 2020 data as scheduled, and then the results being released in May. At this stage, we intend to continue the fieldwork with Q2 as soon as possible. So you see, it was delayed, and there was not a report every quarter, right? I think it was every bi quarter that they actually released it. All right. So, in terms of that, very difficult for radio stations to then use the RAMs and the figures because they did release this. People do know that there's been obviously a bit of a again like span in the works, like it's been a little difficult to get more accurate responses and more accurate data. Face-to-face field work is where I mean, it could be people collecting certain stuff, but okay, we do this digitally, excuse me, digitally for now, um, and so it is a lot easier and a lot more accurate. We can make changes to that digital platform, whatever it is. When we are kind of filing those responses, we can hold things online, whatever it may be. We've found a way. COVID allowed us to explore different avenues, right? But anyway, that's not. This is not really important. It's just an example of certain status. And when you go to the BRC site, you're going to see listener reports that will look for quarterlies. You understand, right? Okay. Um, so release presentation and listener reports. The release presentation is the longer one, which they actually don't release anymore. I'm saying it publicly, right? So it's a really cool long 150 slide presentation that gives you all the details as to why, like I say, whatever is happening with the station, listeners, responses, everything. Really cool, very nice, right? What we're getting for free and what's accessible now, if you go to the BRC site, are only listener reports, which I'll show you an example of. I've got, I think, the latest one, right? Okay, to make sure that it is relevant. Yeah. So, for example, so LSM versus SEMs, okay? With the SAF amps specifically, and I don't want to go into it in too much detail. Again, SAF approaches, right, were based on LSM reports, and when moved over to the BRC, right, it soon changed over to SEM, right? So, for example, and I don't think much of these apply to like what I want to talk about, but let's say a vacuum cleaner, polisher, TV set, flush toilet inside or outside the house, 0 or 1 radio sets in a household. So we're looking at understanding how the households are, constructed or whatever it is they contain. No, and again, these particular uh, say stats have a heavy weighting in different aspects of research, right? Okay. All right. So we moved to the SEM. There we go. Socioeconomic measurement. I'm very proud because I have a really short memory span. So I'm glad I got that right and I gave you the right information. Um, okay. So the SEM depicts how South Africans live based on what they have access to in and around their homes. Okay. They rely less on durables and more on household structures and community infrastructures. I did say there, I did umbrella that in terms of what their lifestyles, right? I said lifestyles, but I said basically lifestyles for me is how you spend your money, right? Okay. So SEM's improved our approach to segmentation, which is really relevant in South Africa. Segmentation of people, uh, classes, whatever it may be, and the 14 SEM inputs built in kitchen sinks, water sources, types of toilets, motor cars, etc., 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 all contribute to, like again, how much you can spend or do spend, right? Okay, how much you have in your home. So, if we ever look at the 10 SEMs across the spectrum from the bottom to the top, of socioeconomic groups. Again, SEM 1 to SEM, just get that a little bit more so you can actually see there. All right, SEM 1 to SEM 10. And the fairy tale was quote unquote. The LSMs weren't really accurate there. And now we moved into what looks like a lot more, like that makes a lot more sense. I said there, lower class obviously is predominant more in South Africa than the rest of our classes. All right, but let's not dwell on it too long. I think you get the gist without it getting confusing or me having to go to a third year level explanation. All right. So so some points to consider. No crystal balls. Find out if the research that you require has been performed before and by someone else. If not, ask the right questions. So you can compile the data like yourself, obviously. Ideally, well, this is what my current third years are busy with. All the third years are busy with this particular whole process of, qualitative and quantitative measurements, right? And then analyze and interpret the results in a manner that properly supports business intelligence. Remember, I mentioned knowledge management earlier and decision making processes. Right. Okay, just to close off, and then I want to have a quick look at what our latest report. Okay, so don't get intimidated by the language of research. There's so much of it. There's so much that is obviously, I mean, understood by professionals that work at the BRC. We get that, but also, yes, to a very large extent, station managers, program managers need to understand, like what catty means, right? Or why they're using quote unquote. I think it's called small town or small city, right? As part of their metrics or how they get to their final obviously numbers. Again, also understanding, there's so much new terminology in this. And the more you read, the more you watch, I find a YouTube videos are presented by the VRC RAM are much more effective because there's a person there that is proficient in it. And I totally understand what this particular person is saying as they walk you through the RAMs, in particular, detail to detail. Okay, qualitative research focus groups, quantity, numbers, as I said before, and the validity of your research. Make sure that everyone fills in everything, right? And that when you are leading focus groups, you're not looking at pushing. Opinions are important if they're factual. Opinion is based on fact, right? You can't have an opinion without a fact. If you don't like a show, you're going to tell me why. But the whys have to be like relevant. They have to actually be worth something, right? Okay, but please, you can't go and choose, let's say, all like in your sample set, um, all black people that are all aged between 25 and 28 that all earn higher than 50,000 rand. It doesn't make any sense. Like, and you can't also select. It's got to be random selections, eh? So you also want people there from your competitors, right? You want people that sit in slightly lower SEMs, or because maybe they do listen or they don't listen, or whatever it is. You're trying to understand SEMs that you are not reaching, but should be reaching in that area. Just saying, non-biased and obviously methodical. Okay. For you need to go and do five other. Sorry, no, no. So let me just say that I was going to say five for each. That doesn't make any sense. Answer the following questions and then find five other respondents. Email all the answers. You're more than welcome to present them in class when I do see you, right? This will be something that, as far as I remember, is tested in your formative one. So please go ahead and do that. Ask the questions. How many times a week do you listen to radio? How long do you listen at a time? How many hours a week on average do you spend listening to the radio? How often do you listen to community radio? And how often do you change the station? What's your favorite format radio station? And uh, where do you do most of your radio listening? So nice, easy questions, very simple to answer. So five of your classmates or five of your friends, have them answer that for you to get a better understanding. So I'm going to stop the share for that. I'm going to share the screen for, where's my file? Hold on a second. Oh, Adobe, but give me a second. I want to do this one. Um, a second. Here we go. Right. So as I said to you, this was the latest release that I could actually find. P7D means basically the past 7 days, and this is yesterday. So it's an average per day, right? Average per day. As you can see, we're looking at two uh, two variations over here. From you can see the months vary just a little bit here, right? June 22nd, July 22nd, June 23, May 23. Just a month difference over, so you can just see a little bit, right? Okay. So for example, like 702 has 719,000 listeners, which is massive per per their past 7 days, so on weekly, right? On a daily average, also really great. I mean, 353, right? Okay. And as we move over, we can see that there's an increase on both these numbers, which means that they are doing well. Okay. Um, Obviously, it's not in order, so you'll see that our largest, so Corsi has and always is and always will be um our biggest listening or listen to station, right? And then we've got like really good efforts from, I mean, Metro looking at that, knowing that it is second and it's commercial. Yes, it is national, but we look at, let's say, 5 FM. So let's see if we can find 5 FM here. Live. Oh, there we go. So look at five and look at, so I mean, no disrespect to five, nearly a million, that's cool. But in comparison to Metro, 1.5, like I said, 4.6 is it's a big difference. You know, what's cool about this is that now they've just reshaped, and which is much easier to read. So, like, let's say, obviously, the Eastern Cape here, for community radio stations, we get Free State here. We're looking at Gauteng, for example, Gauteng. Let's get Alex. Alex, them doing quite well with 27,000 listeners. But look at Radio Pulpit, 65,000 listeners. That's amazing. Look at Josie FM, 413. That's crazy. How crazy for a community station. That's insane. Well done to them. Um, Really big numbers there. When it shows a zero, it hasn't reached, I think, so I think it's a that doesn't make any sense for me. I don't think they were registered for that. This one they didn't request for that. The zeros across don't make any sense. I don't think they either didn't reach a sample set. Let me just quickly see here. Small base size for P7D relationships, so less than 40 provided for indicators only included from July onwards. Okay, so there could be many reasons, right? So, for example, these stations might only have started getting their statistics or whatever it is past like a due date to, let's say, show there and reflect that, because that doesn't make any sense. 000, it either means that they got less than 1,000 listeners, right? So, like, for example, here that makes sense. That's 1,000 listeners for Hellenic radio, but like definitely less than 1,000. Okay, there's one also makes sense there. 2,000 here for mid cities. Uh, Maybe it is. I would suspect that they have less than 1,000 listeners uh, over the week and over. Yeah, I think that's more accurate. Okay, anyway, you can have a look in as well, and I'm going to leave it at that. Those all tabs. All right. Okay. Uh, Good luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson.